Welcome to part 2 of taking the mystery out of pi. Now, when we left Mac at the end of part 1, he was feeling pretty fat and happy. He had 3 lumps of cheese in his belly. He was feeling pretty smart. He was answering all these problems and had pretty much figured that he had gotten this whole cheese thing figured out. But then one morning, he wakes up, and this is what he finds. Oh my word, what on earth is this? There's a pie dish sitting there right in front of his mouse hole. The pun is intended. Now Mac, he would just die to run straight across the circle. He would die to run across the diameter of the circle and just get that cheese and get back really quickly. But he can't. This is something in math that we call a constraint. Mac is constrained. He is unable to run straight across that circle and get the cheese. No! Mac has to run around the circle. The poor little guy, look at him. He's got to run all the way down here, even though the cheese is just to the right of him. And then he's got to run back up to get the cheese. And then he's got to run all the way up here to the top of the circle and all the way back down again just to get back to safety. Oh, what a mess. So Mac is getting desperate. He hasn't eaten for days. Look how small he's gotten. He's shrunken back to his original weight. This is awful. So Mac wants to have some kind of idea about what the circumference is. What's circumference? Well, circumference is just the distance around the whole circle. The word circumference even sounds like circle, doesn't it? So what Mac wants to know is he wants to know what the circumference is of this circle. And he's desperate. He doesn't need to know it exactly. He just wants to have some rough idea of what he's in for if he starts running around this pie tin and Kruger starts chasing him. So he just wants a rough idea, an estimate of what the circumference is. So I want you to think about this. We have a circle. It has a diameter of 1 foot. That's the distance across the circle. And I just want you to come up with a rough idea of what you think the distance would be for Mac to have to run all the way around the circle, the circumference. So it's time to pause and ponder. Okay, before I give you my answer for this, I want you to think about one thing. Can you come up with some lower bound on what the circumference must be? In other words, can you come up with a number that's so low that the circumference is guaranteed to not be less than that number? The circumference must be bigger than this lower boundary. Can you come up with a number like that? Pause and ponder on that for a moment. Okay, this was a hard question, and it's possible you might not even have understood what I meant by lower boundary. So let me just get into it here with you. Now remember I said that Mac would die to run across the diameter, right? Just thinking about it, it's much shorter distance for Mac just to go in a straight line and get the cheese.